ever since I was a child, I've been really interested in people's garbage. My family used to go to the dump, not for like an activity, but to drop trash off. And we'd drive up to the very edge of this garbage pit, and I always had the intrusive thought to jump in and look around. I'm always voyeuristically interested in why people choose to surround themselves with the things that they do. Weird collections, heirlooms, and just clutter and knickknacks. And it was our family dump trips, along with the fact that my grandparents owned a storage unit business, that really have led me to this maximalist appreciation for cluttered, dirty, decaying aesthetics. I think it leans into my curiosity about other lives that I will just never lead. And I also think that that's why I really love reading, is because we get to experience all of these lives that are just not the ones that we are on the path of. So with that being said, I would like to introduce 3 of my favorite aesthetics that I think stem from my childhood love of landfills and other people's antiques that got left behind. And I'm going to correspond them with some spec fic, mostly science fiction, fantasy, and some horror novels that I think go along with these aesthetics. So if these vibes are the kinds of things that you're into, you might want to check out these books. And I'm also going to list some books that I want to read that I think are going to fit in these aesthetics. So let's dive into some trash. First up on my list, I have the Tropicoth aesthetic. This is a mixture of tropical and gothic. And when I think Tropicoth, I think botanical macabre, sultry darkness, the movies Apocalypto, Pirates of the Caribbean, even a bit of The Mummy. And I especially like it when it is scary and dark and disturbing and maybe a little gross, as all of these aesthetics will have in common in the way that I like them. So first thing I think of when I think Tropicoth of books that I've read is The Ruins by Scott Smith. This is a horror novel set in the jungle. It's got isolation themes. It's got scary plants. It is decently scary for a long novel, which is always an accomplishment that I think is something to be proud of, to be able to keep that tension for a long amount of time. And The Ruins by Scott Smith definitely does it. So it's a great Tropicoth horror novel if you'd want to check that out. I think it's kind of a modern classic. It's been around for a while and it's pretty well known. Another one in the Tropicoth aesthetic is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, and really anything by Jeff Vandermeer. It's got that fungal, gross mustiness to it, and they're always pretty weird when you go into Jeff Vandermeer. So the Southern Reach trilogy, starting with Annihilation, and the movie that is based on it, are really great, trippy, mind-bendy, nature, ecological, fungal, gross experiences that I highly recommend you check out if you like this aesthetic. And also, I have Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia on this list. With the words Mexican and Gothic, obviously you can see kind of where this is going with how it relates to Tropicoth. And again, it's got that fungal mustiness, much like Annihilation does. And it's another horror novel, and it almost veers into like the Lovecraftian cosmic side of things, which I always appreciate. So excellent book here, especially if you want more of a little character study rather than just full-on weird or horror. This is a great one to check out. As for books that I want to read that I think are going to fit into this category, first off is On Stranger Tides by Tim Powers, and I believe this is what one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies was based on. And I love Tim Powers, as you will come to find out later in this video, so On Stranger Tides is something I'm really looking forward to reading. As well as The Hungry Moon by Ramsey Campbell. This is about a fervent Christian religious man who veers into, I want to say like a druid-run area of Northern Irish or English moors, and I believe gets pretty weird with like demons and horror and that kind of, swampy vibe. So that's what I'm hoping I get with The Hungry Moon by Ramsey Campbell, and that closes out the Tropicoth category. Next up, I have something I like to call Dank Academia. It's not dark academia, it's grosser, and it's full of esoteric books and secret societies and slimy people doing slimy things and learning and witchcraft and just a hint of steampunk. Not a ton of steampunk. I don't like steampunk, but I like the gas lamp Victorian type of architecture, and I think that also speaks to my like maximalist gothic love. So In this category, I think probably the bookification of this aesthetic is Perdido Street Station by China Mieville. In Perdido Street Station, this gross city is a character of its own, and you can smell it. There are weird things going on all throughout the city. There's weird creatures due to nuclear waste and genetic mutation and alchemy, and just people trying to go about their lives in this trash heap of a charming city. And I highly recommend it if you love a lot of description, really vivid, grotesque description. Perdido Street Station is for you. Also in this aesthetic is a book I read recently, and it's The Anubis Gates by Tim Powers. Tim Powers making it onto the list again. Again, with the Mieville-esque description, so vivid. The book spends a lot of time in a very Victorian type setting with strange Egyptian flavored magic. So again, it's got that like kind of dirty, like unwashed aspect to it. And then it is just mind-blowing and mind-bending with time travel and with the magic that it uses, and the characters are really great in The Anubis Gates as well. I highly, highly recommend this book. And for a little bit of a different one, I think Nevernight by Jay Kristoff can suit the Dank Academia aesthetic here. It's not as dark, obviously. It's Nevernight. It's set in mostly like a very bright city, but it still has that crumbling decay about it. In this case, it's due to like the corrupt politics and the way that the setting is run by the elite. And it is very gross in that it centers around murder and assassin school. So it also, because of the school aspect, it does have that academia feel to it, but in a much darker way than what you would generally think of as like magical boarding school. So I highly recommend Nevernight by Jay Kristoff if you don't mind a lot of vulgarity and a lot of things that, well, let's be honest, if you're watching my channel, you're not afraid of a little gross and weird book talk. So Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. It's a modern treasure for a reason. As for books I want to read in this category, I have The Magus. The Magus? I still don't know how to say that word. By John Fowles. And I believe this has a lot of secret society, esoteric learning about it, along with some magic. And I just feel like it's going to be kind of gross because I've read like the first 10% of it, and the main character was a sleazeball. So it sounds great. And another one on this list is The Vagrant by, oh my gosh, Peter something. I didn't type it out. Sorry, it's on the screen. I also read about the first 10% of this book, and while it doesn't have the academia aspect to it, it was really gross and filthy, a lot like Perdido Street Station, and it's like a man kind of wandering through, and he has a task that's kind of unknown to us, and I feel like there's going to be some kind of twisty aspect to this futuristic, disgusting, decrepit world. So I love the Dank Academia aesthetic, and I would love your recommendations for really gross, weird, esoteric, secret society, mystery type books. And the last aesthetic on my list today is luxury abandoned backrooms. I love the eternal wet claustrophobia of like the decaying pool rooms aesthetic. Endless hallways, creepy isolation, liminal space, spatial horror is one of, if not my favorite, of all the aesthetics. Something about this is so just like comforting, nostalgic, uncanny, creepy to me. Think like the movie Vivarium, the movie Triangle is another really good one. I just love like the endless, scary place feel. And I love like the rotting opulence of this specific aesthetic. So the first one that I can think of that truly embodies this aesthetic is Piranesi by Susanna Clark. Piranesi is dreamlike, fever dreamlike. It's a bit nonsensical at times, but always in a really cozy way. But there's that feeling underneath that something is wrong. Something's wrong with this place, to be specific. And that is one of my favorite things. It just makes me feel some kind of way, you know? That like transitional where is reality feeling. Piranesi does that very well. It's a fantastic book, highly recommended. Another book that goes along with this aesthetic and is one of my recent most favorite reads is The Grey House by Mariam Petrosian. This book is translated from Russian, and it is translated so beautifully. The prose in this book is incredible, and it really goes along with the unreality, dreamlike, liminal space setting that is the Grey House, which is a boarding school for disabled children, and the house may or may not be a deity. These children are surrounded by relics and trash and treasure from the outside world, and it's just a really endearing, cozy, cluttered, claustrophobic, maximalist novel. It's very long, but it's really worth reading. The characters are incredibly well realized, and everything feels so special and feels like it has such a weight, even the garbage in this book. And the last one on this list for liminal space, luxury, crumbling backrooms is the Gormenghast trilogy by Mervyn Peake. Gormenghast as a setting, the castle, it is such a weird spatial place to find yourself inhabiting and exploring, and it is endless, and the rituals surrounding it and the people that live inside it are just as strange as the setting itself. It is a classic for a reason. It's very intimate in setting because most of it takes place in one spot, but that spot is so expansive, so strange, and so alluring that it really feels like a world in itself. I highly recommend the Gormenghast novels. As for books that I want to read in this aesthetic, first up is, of course, House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. I don't know how I haven't read this book because it's so right up my alley with this aesthetic that I should have read it a long time ago. Maybe I'm saving it for a special time. Maybe I'm a little bit intimidated by it. That's all true. But it is one that I would really love to get to because it is kind of the epitome of this aesthetic, I think. And the last one is The Nightlands by William Hodgson. And I am probably going to read the updated The Nightland, A Story Retold, because I think the prose is maybe a little bit more approachable than the one that was written in, I believe, in 1908. But it has to do with kind of an end of the world scenario. And there's a strange pyramid that everyone lives in, and there's strange creatures on the outside. And this book is briefly referenced in one of my other favorite books, The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. There's a black pyramid at the end of time, and something about that just really entices me to find out what's going on. So I will be reading that, I think this year. It's on my list. So there we have it, my favorite aesthetics and the books that go with them. Let me know down in the comments what some of your favorite vibes and aesthetics are, if it's cottagecore, vaporwave, whimsy goth, what have you. I have a ton more ideas for this because scrolling through TikTok and looking at new aesthetics and using Midjourney AI to make more aesthetics is something that I've been finding really fun lately. So again, let me know down in the comments some of your recommendations, your favorite aesthetics, and maybe if you have any recommendations for me based on mine. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.